Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the Glade of the Everqueen. It's going to be myself on Nurgle facing off against Lord Chicken, who's going to be leading the forces of the Empire Master Engineer versus the Sorcerer Lord of Nurgle. Sorcerer Lord does have a new mount. He can ride the Rot Beast, which makes him a little bit of a better fighter. With the passive healing, I think he's going to be very, very good. Now, as far as my build goes, it's going to be living in the bushes. Our entire front line is going to be Marauders of Nurgle. Pestigors will be coming in reserve. I believe I have 3 or 4 Pestigors in my sideline army, but the front core is going to be Marauders because I need a little bit of mitigation against Empire shooting. As far as anti-cab tools goes, I do have the Bile Trolls. Bile Trolls, much like, Chaos Armor Trolls or Frost Trolls on Norska, are going to be a very good answer against heavy cavalry. Sure, you don't want to be eating a head-on charge from like a Knight of the Blazing Sun, but against Empire Knights and oh my god, this guy's having a bit of a problem right here. But against some of the, I'm like totally distracted by their animations. Against some of the other cav units that don't have a ton of shock power on impact, they'll be a good choice. Also, we got Rot Knights. Rot Knights are an excellent tech against the cav. They're very expensive and a little bit vulnerable against the Empire. If Empire does come in with like war wagons or heavy AP shooting and they get caught in the open, you're going to have a very bad time. But I wanted to kind of see how they could do here. On top of that, we do have a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Nurgle. He is the traditional caster lord who I think is going to become very meta. He already was, kind of, but now that he can ride this beast, which is going to be giving him better armor piercing and dueling capabilities in tandem with his passive healing he has from the Crown of Everlasting Conquest, he'll probably be pretty common. So he's going to be using Buna and Spirit Leech, so take note of that this game. I do not have a lot of healing. We got 2 Exalted Heroes of Nurgle. They are also good duelists, good at hunting characters. I figured he might come in with like a land ship or a steam tank, so I wanted to have a goon squad that can go after those things and keep them honest. And that's basically it for my starting army. Now for my opponent here, Lord Chicken, he's going to be rocking a Master Engineer on horseback, which is a great tech. This guy has a grenade launcher and is really good against chaff infantry. So if you're just using him to shoot down like Marauders and Pestigors and those type of things, it's quite good. And also Pigeon Bombs are amazing. They do a ton of damage. I've done a little bit of testing with it and it's really good against infantry. So I highly recommend the Master Engineer. I think he's a great choice. Rest of the army is going to be Spearmen, State Troopers. No surprises there, obviously, with some Knights of the Black Rose on the tree line. And if they do have a niche application, Nurgle is probably a pretty good matchup for them, right? They have anti-infantry, so they can get in there and clear out Nurglings, Pestigors, Marauders. As long as you can avoid the Rot Knights and Trolls, they'll have an okay time. In the back, we have a little bit of firepower as well. It's going to be double Hochland Long Rifle, if not triple. No, it's going to be triple Hochland Long Rifle here, ready to unleash on the Nurgle forces. Another great change, by the way, guys. You probably just noticed the objectives and domination basically open up instantly now. So that whole thing where people would sit back, it's certainly not going to happen as much. The action is going to start much quicker in domination games, so just be ready for it when you get into your next Dom tournament, my friends. It is a bit of a different beast now. The games are a little bit quicker. So Nurglings and Marauders going to be hanging here, while the Engineer Lord for the Empire is going to be trying to scoot up and rip some pot shots into the Marauders. And in response to this, I do call out my Rot Knights, or not my Rot Knights, but my Exalted Heroes of Nurgle. Grenade going. I believe I did dodge it. I kind of pulled back, and still makes a little bit of contact there. It does take out 10 Marauders. Wow, that was a nice shot. 1 shot, 10 kills. Certainly going to be a good creed for him to live by. Now, as far as the rest of the action goes, we do move the Marauders up on the side point here. Going to be claiming that one. So I do get Objective 3 and Objective 1, and now the fighting is going to be beginning. And that's where Nurgle will be shining. We want to fight, we want to go fisticuffs, get Marauders into Spearmen, turbo cost effective, while the Knights of the Black Rose are embracing the bushes. Pestigors have been called in. Pestigors, a decent dual purpose unit against the Empire. They'll trade well into basic State Troopers, and they also have enough AP to fight the cavalry too. So I like them as a vanguard option for getting up on the objectives quickly. In the meantime, the Exalted Heroes of Nurgle are going to be diving into combat. My overall game plan for them is to sneak them into the backfield and try and shut down the Hawk and Long Rifles and the other Empire shooting, as there are 3 of those, and they're getting good value. Hawk and Long Rifles here, shooting my Marauders down. They don't have the Shield Breaker trait. An Exalted Hero going to be weaving back here as my opponent calls in Demograph Knights with Halberds. Though on this side, we get a good fight. The Knights of the Black Rose did decide to flank my units, but then the Bile Trolls come in with the Fate of Buna, and that is going to be Pound Town, while the Rot Knights of Nurgle, the big heavy hitters, are on their way in, looking super awesome. And there they are. So Rot Knight's going to be cleaving the Knights of the Black Rose, which are unfortunately taking a lot of damage, as the French would say. Fate of Buna going down, HP looking very grim, getting rear charged by Trolls, their MD being lowered. I would not be surprised if they broke. Yes, they did break. Likely going to be running off the tree. So a good start for Nurgle. It's not often you get that much value that early on. Meanwhile, the Exalted Heroes are on the Hawk and Long Rifles, and the other heroes over here as well. He's going to be trying to push away, but he's likely going to be caught by the Demis. They're about the same speed, give or take, but I'm in his backfield. He can, screen me with spears, so that is going to be dodgy. But 2 Hawk and Long Rifles have been taken down, or not taken down, but pinned down. And I am going to be getting a little bit sneaky as I do call in some Warhounds here in a second. They're going to be trying to find their way in. So 1 Warhound weaving through here. The other Warhound is going to be creeping around the side of the formation. And this is a dangerous play for the Rot Knights, trying to get in my opponent's backfield, but I figured it was worth it. Hawkland Long Rifles do a bunch of damage, and they need to go. They're not cheap either. They're like 850, 900 gold, so just popping them and getting on. It's much like against Vampire Coast, killing a Death Gunner certainly feels good. And some Empire Knights do respond out of the trees. The reinforcements called in for the Emperor, and they are going to be meeting my Rot Knights, which are a pretty hard counter against them, but my opponent does have some nice overlapping play, as he does get a bit of a surround with some Spearmen here, so that means my Rot Knight's not going to be having a great time. And look at the beautiful crossfire as well. That's really nice. So he does get the Hawk and Long Rifles to shoot into my poor Rot Knights here, which are rotting and not doing terribly well at this point now that they're fully surrounded. But I do get a sneaky. Nurgle is not without his tricks. Some of the Chaos Poorhounds with poison do get on top of the Hogland Long Rifles, the Hogs. The Hawkland Long Rifles, and they're going to get torn to shreds. They're a really squishy unit. Super Glass Cannon. Again, much like Death Gunners on Vampire Coast. A little bit better than them, though, because the Vampire Coast ones would just crumble and be gone, whereas these guys can come back with like 10 models and do something. Pestigores have also pushed on to the home objective of the Empire, and we do have a pretty good push on them right now. We have a bit of a grind here. Nurglings for State Troopers, Marauders for State Troopers, and Pestigores for Spearmen. We should be winning most of these fights, but it's going to take 10 years. So this is where I get a little bit crazy. I decide to push on to my opponent's objective here. We do get the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Nurgle here, hunting down the Jade Wizard and punching him around like a little chew toy. Pestigores knocking down the Demogryph Knights with halberds, and I would say overall at this point I'm in a bit of a winning position, but if I overextend for too long back here, we could be, could give the Empire an opportunity to grind some value back and get some momentum, but for me, it feels like it's worth it here to get this triple cap, or at least try to, and keep the Empire stuff back while just accruing those sweet, sweet points. And back here, Empire Knights, the Knights of the Black Rose, I believe these are the ones that got Buna'd, I think. Yeah, they are. They came back, they got healed with a couple models, and they do end up taking out a Nurgling unit, so they didn't hear no bell, but the Vile Trolls pounding these State Troopers, and the back objective feeling a little bit sketchy with the Knights of the Black Rose coming. Suddenly I was like, oh, I felt safe back here, and not anymore, as I do call in Forsaken to move up and stabilize that objective. Meanwhile here, we got a bit of a pit fight. The Jade Wizard is likely going to be shattered and or killed here at 400 HP. And the Sterling's Revenge having a bit of a field day shooting into my characters here. Exalted Hero of Nurgle a little bit low, so is this one, and they are battling against the Empire Knights as the Rot Lord Wizard, the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Nurgle on the Rot Beast, is going to be doing a bit of a number here on Sterling's Revenge, taking out 4 models with that last attack, and hopefully he'll be able to keep them from shooting. Because these guys do have good armor piercing, so you're not going to want them kind of poking away at you. A couple Marauder Horsemen did overextend. I moved them up on the point to try and get the capture weight, so that was a bit of a blunder. Here we do get the Fecundity, which is very, very clutch. That's going to be giving some nice healing to the Exalted Hero. And again, I'm going Buna, so I don't have access to healing here, which I was certainly missing. At this point, I was like, man, I wish I could heal these characters with like an Overcasted Fleshy and resurrect some of the Pestigores. But the Bunas have been good, and so have the Spirit Leeches. The Buna was able to really mitigate the effectiveness of those Empire Heavy Cavalry in the beginning. And the meta for the Empire has always been grenade launchers. Now the Empire has so many ways they can play. It's going to be very different. But I figured I needed Buna to take care of grenade launchers because it used to be near impossible for Nurgle to deal with those. Like really, really tough against good players. But Forsaken have arrived up on the point, and thankfully I did have a couple guys in the trees. The Rot Knights did rally from their beating earlier, so they did rally and they ran into the tree line. But now the Rot Knights going to be heading back here with 1,100 value so far, so not terrible, honestly. And they're going to be charging into the back of the grenade launchers, which the Forsaken are also closing the distance on. Meanwhile, on Objective 1, we got that one more or less under control, but the Knights of the Black Rose have helped them win that fight. A couple of Plague Toads coming up. Plague Toads are kind of a Walmart counter against heavy cavalry. Rot Knights get a nice rear charge in, and they are probably close to paying for themselves. They're not cheap now, 1,300 value right now, give or take. They cost, I think, 1,700. They're really, really pricey. So, yeah, the regeneration's nice. That really helps them kind of get that work done. Forsaken going to be massacring Spearmen now. Plague Toads also moving in, and unfortunately, we were never able to get that objective, and we're going to be going for a bit of a gooning here on the Master Engineer. But the Master Engineer is not on the Robo Horse, which means he's more lightly armored, but he's going to be faster than me. He's got 78 speed, the Rot Beasts are 75. So I gave up chase on him, realizing that if I chase back here, what's likely going to happen is he'll call in a gun unit or a Demogryph Knight and just punish my character. So we go back to the grind here. Exalted Hero battling it out. Sterling's Revenge, though, have been absolute beasts this game. I've been attacking them nonstop. They've gotten 1,300 value in their shooting, and they have, been doing quite well. Demogryph Knights with Halberds also not doing badly. Despite taking some tough fights, they managed to get 2k value against me, so they've helped the Empire scrap back in this game, in which the value is more or less dead even. Granted, you have to remember I have some units that are demonic and do crumble down, so that isn't going to be reflected in the value, so he's probably up by about 100 to 200 value, considering some of the crumbling on Nurglings, things like that. Maybe like 200 value, I would say. So Chaos Warhounds getting into Free Company Militia. Free Company Militia, though, are resilient fighters, for what they are. They're going to be able to fight back against the Chaos Warhounds here, and you can see they're holding their own in that fight. But the Forsaken and Plague Toads here are going to be taking the Empire to Pound Town. And yeah, they're nibbling away, doing it pretty well. Although the flank coming in from the Classic Empire Knights will be able to probably sandwich my units here. And I really just wanted to get them in a situation where it'd be a triple cap. So I need to hold these objectives a little bit longer for that to be the case. It's not quite there, but we're trying our best. Nurglings arriving from the deep support, knowing that I need a little bit more capture weight here just in case. And the Empire Cavalry going to be flanking. But Empire Knights are kind of a wet noodle unit. They're more of a roadblock. The Nurglings will be able to kind of hold them for some time. Well, the Chaos Sorcerer character here is going to be duking it out with the Old Spearman. And not the best fight for him, but overall, he's got that Crown of Everlasting Conquest, which is actually an item in the tabletop as well. It basically gives healing via a regeneration save in tabletop. So pretty cool. Although in tabletop, if you do fire damage, you can ignore regeneration save. So it doesn't really work like it in this game here with that. But, you know, healing is affected by fire, of course, in this game. So Objective 3, currently owned by myself, but it's getting a little bit dodgy. The Empire has gotten some counter momentum here. So I was starting to sweat bullets a little bit. I was like, oh, this is a really close game in the beginning. I have jumped up to a value lead here, but again, we're probably more or less even. And there's the Pigeon Bombs right there. Check that out. Huge damage against my Plague Toads and Forsaken. I was really shocked at how well that did. And now the Empire's calling in its heavy hitters, baby. It's going to be the Flagellants. So the Flagellants are cruising for a bruising. And yeah, they'll be good against the remnants of my tattered units. Honestly, Flagellants will defeat Marauders of Nurgle pretty decisively. And they'll also probably beat a Pestigore unit. So that's a really good call-in for my opponent. As I did, usually you don't see Warriors in this matchup too much. Although Warriors would have arguably been very good. A couple shielded Warriors against what he brought, I think would have been pretty resilient. So Pestigore's up on the point, fighting away. Plague Toad's going to be surging forward to get on these Sterling's Revenge, who are just absolute chads, up to 2k value right now. But now the Plague Toad's going to be turning around to go after the Empire Knights, while the Nurglings will be surging forth to try and get on these Sterling's Revenge. Probably will lose that fight. Would you resummon Rot Knights? No, it's a different Rot Knight. Yeah, okay, so this is a separate Rot Knight. They've come in, they've gotten about 300 value so far, and now they're going to be intercepting the Empire Knights, and here they come, big, thick cavalry. I'm really excited for the Khorne DLC as well. I hope Khorne gets some like big, cool units like this. I mean, they do have Skull Crushers. Skull Crushers just need a rework, honestly. They should probably cost like 200 gold less. I think Skull Crushers, how much are they? About the same price as Rot Knights? Rot Knights are definitely better because of the healing, and they're faster too. In a straight-up fight, it's pretty even. Rot Knights and Skull Crushers trade more or less evenly, which isn't necessarily a good thing, because in a straight fight, Skull Crushers should probably beat Rot Knights, but the Rot Knight should have the option of getting away and healing. Although I don't really know. I'm just kind of like tinfoil hiding right now. But I do feel like Skull Crushers need a little bit of milk. They just seem a little bit janky for what they are. So the Chaos Sorcerer Lord using an Overcasted Spirit Leech to get the extra range, trying to shut down those Hawken Long Rifles, which have returned and are getting good value against my Rot Knights. Currently, we would not win on just one objective. It's very close. We would lose by about 20, 30 points, give or take, so it'd be a really, really tight game. So I knew that at this point. I played enough Dom games, and I'm like, okay, I got to find a way to get this objective. So let's surge forth with our big momentum here, use the Rot Knights, the Toads, and the Nurglings to get up there and let the Nurglings feast. Because this objective is like turbo entrenched. He's got Flagellants here, Flagellants, unit of Free Company Militia. None of it felt great. I did have some call-ins here, some Marauders of Nurgle that were looking to kind of play that objective. But at the end of the day, we need to go for objective 2 and try and do it. So moving up on the point, the Rot Knights unfortunately facing a lot of spears and halberds, so my opponent does have a lot of pointy sticks, so that is quite scary. Thankfully, I do have some Pestigores arriving. They are being peppered down a little bit by the Free Company Militia, and there's the Pigeon Bombs. I think that's going to be missing for the most part. Yeah, here comes the pigeons from the skies. And yeah, he did miscast it a little bit. Could have been on this blob, but you know, the positioning was a little bit awkward as Empire Heavy Cavalry and the Master Engineer are now over here. You can see the Tears of Nurgle have proc. That is the Pestigore ability, which is going to be slowing down all these nearby units. Very, very good. It's a solid one, and it does spread. So all these units right now are like, we're losing vigor and are also slowed down from the Tears of Nurgle. It's a really, really strong combo piece. And Tears of Nurgle, the way that the Nurgle army ability procs now is by spreading debuffs. So Tears of Nurgle helps you get your Nurgle army ability very, very quickly. So we're going to be duking it out on this point. On the backside, my Marauder is going to be moving up. I figured we'll start trying to soften up the Flagellants and see if there's ever going to be an opportunity to move this way. Meanwhile, these Rot Knights, this is the second unit of Rot Knights. They've done pretty well. They've been fighting mostly Empire Heavy Cavalry, about 1,000 value so far. Going to be flanking into the Empire Knights right here. While a unit of Demogryph Knights with halberds tries to come and engage my Rot Knights. So my game plan was to try and slow them down and outmaneuver them a little bit, which is a weird thing to say, Nurgle outmaneuvering things. It does happen though. Nurgle in tabletop is pretty damn slow too, but you know, they got some healing shenanigans and other things like that. So Surround coming in with the Demogryph Knights, trying to outflank my Rot Knights, and we take the fight a little bit longer against the Empire Knights, but a nice Earthblood from my opponent. Remember, my opponent probably honestly has more healing than me, So that's why the game is very, very close, considering the fecundity on my side and some of the passive healing in conjunction with his schemes as well. So Rot Knights do get a good flank here. We're also going to be getting a Spirit Leech, so the Rot Knights do get the demis caught unaware. And the Demogryph Knights immediately start to lose that fight with the Pestigore support. Pestigores do have good AP, 32 weapon strength, 34 melee attack, and the Demi-Birds do get a Flesh to Stone, which I really like that. Lord Chicken is, I played a couple games with him, and he's one of the only players I've seen who uses that spell like really, really effectively. I love to see it. So the Demogryph Knight's going to be getting a fat heal. Meanwhile, the Rot Knights at 17 models, they're holding well, but they're surrounded. Empire Knight did get a rear charge of them. They're also being shot by some of the missiles. I believe the Hawk and Long Rifles are shooting them from downtown. Yes, you can see that. Hawk and Long Rifles up to about 600 value. I was able to shut them down pretty effectively this game, but you know, he's still able to scrap them back. So yeah, now I'm definitely not in a position where I'm winning on just one objective. I'm like in full desperation mode. As far as value, I am up a little bit, but again, with his Earthblood and other shenanigans, it's a little bit dicey. But look at the Giga Chad Rot Knights hanging in there with the support of the Marauder Horsemen, able to wear down the Demis as well as the Empire Knights. And now we're all in on this objective, baby. A couple Pestigores getting up, giving Nurgle some much needed Vanguard speed, which I think, you know, people have been, in some of the streams we've been having, people are saying that, you know, Nurgle isn't going to be great and they're, you know, they didn't really get anything, but I disagree. I mean, I think some of their big pieces, they certainly, I would agree with the statement that Nurgle came out the worst of the three factions. I think the Empire and Dwarves are going to be like stronger overall, and they got more like better units in the update. But Nurgle's still going to be a contender for sure. I mean, Lord Chicken is one of the best players in the world, and Nurgle's giving the Empire a very, very good run for its money here, and certainly could win this, right? So Pesty's grinding into Flagellants, not a great trade. 26 melee defense not going to hold up well against the Flagellants. But they're going to go and they're going to move. So now we're going to be rotating over to Objective 3 here in a minute, trying to Alpha Strike that one. I think that's pretty much my last chance to really get in there and do a little something something. Spirit Leech going down on the Flagellants here, just trying to break the infantry on the objective. Could have saved that for Abuna, as another Empire Knight is called over here to reinforce. My Marauders got their butts kicked, but did some damage. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. And the Rot Knights here, I'm not sure what I was doing with them at this point. I think they were screening out the Demogryph Knights, getting ready to fight them once again, chasing down some Empire Knights as well. And some Forsaken were going to be pushing Objective 2, but now they're going to be screaming across the battlefield right here, moving towards Objective number 3 and trying to get that one while we send in some Warhounds just to try and nibble down the Flagellants, get some HP damage on them. We're just doing a little bit of cycle charging, and then we'll be pulling back in a moment. Now, Empire Heavy Cavalry are a very good counter against Chaos Doggos. So the Chaos Doggo is going to be fleeing the scene while the Throwing Axes provide some chipping support damage. Pestigores trading pretty evenly with the Flagellants here, but the Demogryph Knights do come back from morale and get the last laugh against the Rot Knights. Rot Knights at 1,700 value, so they did pay for themselves, which is cool to see. You know, big, expensive elite cavalry don't often do that. But the fact that they do have access to healing, I think, is going to allow them to thrive in situations in which normally elite cav would get punished, right? Empire Cavalry chasing down the Marauders with Throwing Axes, and now we got the play on the objective. It does start to flip, ladies and gentlemen. A couple Marauders on the way over. Forsaken, unfortunately, in the conga line formation. They will annihilate Flagellants. Forsaken are very much a hard counter against Flagellants. Their armor mitigates the Flagellant damage, and they themselves hit like trucks against light armor, so it's a very good situation for me. But the Master Engineer is on his way over, probably accruing about about 1,700 value, not bad at all. It's kind of hard to see what he's doing, but he has been grenade launching my infantry very effectively. A couple Empire Heavy Cavalry going to be surging in, hunting down my backfield here, so you can see the Marauder Horsemen going to be kiting away. We got Marauders moving up as well as Plague Toads. Plague Toads looking to answer some of the cavalry units. And oh god, not the pigeon bombs! The pigeon's going to be dropping some hot steaming loads on my Forsaken. Also nailing some of the Flagellants, but look at the damage. That was about 40% HP. I mean, that is an amazing ability. So I think Master Engineer is going to be good. Elspeth is going to be gods here. I mean, man, Empire's got a lot of options now. Probably not going to see Gelt too much. That was one of my disappointments, was Balthazar Gelt not getting a rework, because he's just so underwhelming and kind of boring. I would have liked to have seen him get some like custom items, or maybe rework his staff to do some cool stuff instead of just giving like recharge like a basic item. But nonetheless, I'm pretty happy with what the Empire got. I mean, they got a ton of stuff, and a lot of it is quite good. So moving up on the point, ladies and gentlemen, he's catching me, and I'm really running out of time. State Troopers coming up. My Chaos Torture Lord setting at 2,200 value, so he's done very well for himself on his Rot Beast. And now we do get the Knights of the Black Rose moving in, and we countercharge them with Toads, Marauders, as well as some Houndos, and we have Throwing Axe support. So this fight's going to go in our favor for sure. The Toads will hold the Knights of the Black Rose all day, and the Empire Knights here are going to be taken down by the supporting Throwing Axes and the Nibbling Hounds. On the objective, we do have Marauders of Nurgle trying to get through the Flagellants, but there are 3 of those. Meanwhile, we have the Lord duel. We got the Rot Beast versus the Master Engineer, which is obviously a heavily favored situation for me, but I do run out of time. GG, well played to my opponent. Really good, super close match. Lost by about 20 points. So there's a couple things to reflect on. I should have made more of an effort to hold on to those 2 objectives. It was a big misplay to push into his zone and fight back there for that long. I thought I could triple cap him, but I should have read the field a little bit better. Because if I just sat back on the 2, I'm pretty sure I win that game. Other big mistake I think was, although the first Rot Knight flank was okay, I think just like not going as all in on his back objective, because I lost my 2 heroes, right? I lost those, and even though we kept the value even, like I didn't have the healing that Nurgle has, so that's not good. If Nurgle has healing, of course you can trade evenly and win games, but I did not. I think going with the Nurgle caster would arguably still be better. Having healing here, the Bunas are useful, but I do think that just having Rancid Visitations and healing would have been a better play. We would have been able to survive, and the Buna was good against Knights of the Black Rose, but I had Rot Knights, I had like Trolls, I had plenty of things that we could have done, right? But I'm really enjoying the new Nurgle stuff. The Rot Knights were really cool. I do think maybe another Troll or 2, like finding a way to mix those in. But I like the Pesties. They seem to do well. 1,500 value, 1,100. I mean, what's not to love, man? Nurgle's looking really, really cool. Because in my opinion, Empire is going to be a top-tier faction in Dom. Going to be very good, like top 5 for sure. Nurgle I don't think will be top 5. I think they'll be a very solid middle faction. But I think Nurgle can compete with Dwarves. Although I don't know, we have to test the steam gyrocopters more. Their gyrocopters are really nasty, the steam ones. I don't know how Nurgle will hang with that, so we're gonna have to figure that out. But I do think that Nurgle can hang with the Empire, which is good, and we'll have to see how they do against some of the other top dogs like Kislev. Kislev I still think is going to be probably the best faction in domination mode. They got like a very light slap on the wrist. They didn't get nerfed as much as I would have liked, but yeah, we'll see. GG well played to my opponent. Looking at value here, he played like an absolute champion, scrapping back, because I do feel he was behind in the beginning, and he fought his way back with good play. Hawkland Long Rifle, 600, 600, and 400. So the rifles kind of got shut down by my characters, but the Demi Chads with 3,000 value. But they were summoned twice, so it's, they basically just paid for themselves. Sterling's Revenge at 2,900. Man, I couldn't stop those guys. They were a beast, man. Absolute beast. My character did fine. The Rot Knights did okay. Characters, 1,500 on that character. Not bad considering how hard they got punished. The other Rot Knight got 1,700, and the Pesties were a really nice centerpiece from my army too. So not centerpiece, but kind of core piece, I should say. GG well played, guys. See you around, and that is going to be it for tonight.